It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, StaggerLee Cole. Hey, StaggerLee, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you. How are you?
Good, very good. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
I got to ask right off the bat, is StaggerLee your real name, or is that a stage name?
It's on my birth certificate, so yeah.
Really? Okay.
It's I'm not sure if you're familiar with any of the versions of the song, but it's an old blues 50s song. I was named after the Lloyd Price version of it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I mean, how do you feel about that? Do you think that's cool, or were you embarrassed about it as a kid?
Oh, no, I love it. I mean, my parents are pretty retro and grew me up like that, and I'm kind of into the 50s. You know, I have a pompadour and listen to old records. I have a 45 with StaggerLee on it on my wall and stuff. So
I'll have to listen to this song. I can't recall it, but there have been. I do remember that there were a lot of versions of it, right?
Yeah, and like throughout decades too. So like the Clash has done a cover of it. Samuel L. Jackson has even done it in one of his movies on guitar, like acoustic. So yeah, it's an oldie.
So I guess I should mention how I came to know of you was we had Bruce Solheim on the show.
Right.
And I watched a bit of the live thing. I assume that was live, right? The Alley's Bees?
Alley's Bees, yes.
And it was really interesting to watch because I thought you guys did a really good job for the tech that you had to try to put that together live. And so I saw you on that, and I thought, well, let me see if I can get StaggerLee on the show, and then we can talk about a little bit about that production. Because, I don't know, Bruce and I didn't spend that much time talking about it. We got off on tangents, and since him and I are kind of in the same age group, we tended to talk about other things other than what it was we were supposed to be talking about. So I did want to ask you a little bit about that. So it was done live, right?
Uh-huh.
And continuity must have been really difficult to try to pull off with that, yeah?
Like, what do you mean?
Well, because you were theoretically you were right there in the same place with the person you were trying to interact with. You were trying to do basically a stage play, right?
Right, yeah. But we weren't actually there with anyone.
With anyone, right. Okay.
Right.
And then, there was a couple of shots where, like, you did sort of a hug.
Right.
Which was kind of cool, even though, you weren't anywhere near each other, right?
Right. So the parts where we actually interacted with each other, like the hugs, were recorded. But we weren't actually in the same room. We just did a hugging motion. And then they were edited so we overlapped and didn't like cut into each other.
Well, it was pretty good. I actually thought it was good considering, because that couldn't have been easy to put together, and especially if you were trying to do it live. I mean, if you were doing it recorded and then editing, you could fix a few things,
Right. Yeah, there's a couple bumps here and there, but as is with every live show, you just gotta work on it and hopefully get better each show you do.
Well, exactly. And that's sort of the beauty of live and I appreciate when people kind of leave in the goofs and the mistakes and things, because it just really shows you how difficult it is to pull something like that off.
Right.
And I have a friend of mine who has been on the show a couple of times. I don't know if you know her. Her name is Katherine Lee Scott. She was one of the original stars of The Dark Shadows. Do you know that show? It was like in the late 60s, early 70s.
I know it. I have not watched it.
Okay, it was the only soap opera that had vampires and ghosts and strange.
Right.
It was a very unique show. Anyways, that was done live originally, and there were a lot of times when dead bodies would move, and people would use the wrong character's name, address you as the wrong character, and they just left it all in the the DVD versions that are out
Right.
now. And her and I talk about that, and she said, I think it's better that they did leave it in, just so people know how much work that was, that we had to pull this off, and they were doing it daily. So, I mean, that was a lot of work. So, hats off to you guys for doing that production.
Right. Thank you.
How many of those have you done?
This is my second one. I did the one right before it that Bruce also wrote, A Tough Trip Through Hell. I was a evil henchman in that one, and then I got a bigger part for the second one, At Least Bees.
So let's talk a little bit about you, a little bit about your background. Your bio says you're from Seattle. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was actually born in Los Angeles, but my parents didn't want me to grow up here, so moved me to Seattle where they were born. And I grew up there, and I now live in Los Angeles again. I moved back for work.
Okay. 6'1", not including your pompadour. So with the pompadour, You're about 6'8", right?
Yeah. Everyone always thinks I'm taller because of my hair, but yeah. I also am really into old vintage hats, and I have some tall, like Lincoln-style top hats that make me have to duck through doorways and such. So,
well, I was looking at some of your photos on Instagram, and I got to tell you, you do have a great look. And
thank you.
The one who came to mind when I was looking at your pictures was Johnny Depp. Have you been compared to him at all?
I have, like, younger Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Especially in some of his goofier movies.
Well, I think Johnny Depp is a tremendous actor, and I think that he has the ability, which not all actors do, to radically alter his appearance and his persona in the different films that he's in. See, there's certain...
I agree. Some of the stuff he's in, you can't even tell it's him.
Yeah, he's unrecognizable.
Right.
Where there's other actors like Robert De Niro, who is basically the exact same person in every film he's been in. He's just a different little slight version of himself. But he doesn't have that ability to just completely alter his personality and persona like Johnny Depp. But I saw a couple of pictures of you, and one you were doing like an Elvis thing, and then another one you look like something right out of Charles Dickens. And you look like two completely different people. So pretty amazing.
Right.
So how's acting going with the COVID and everything? Are you keeping busy? Are you working full-time as an actor? I mean, is that how you support yourself, or do you have some other line of work?
Not right now. I moved here about 2 years ago to Los Angeles, and I was getting a lot of work right when I got here. Just small Netflix stuff and like background gigs and just trying to get somewhere and meet people. But it majorly shut down when COVID hit. And honestly, like I see gigs and stuff around, they're definitely coming back now, but it's a lot of stuff I try to be in stuff I'd be somewhat interested in. There's a lot of things that I'm just not interested in available right now, which I should just suck up and start doing stuff. But right now I'm just working a regular job. I'm a chauffeur for a high-end like driver company.
Oh, like a limo driver?
We drive like new Buicks, but it's kind of so not limos, but still like for people with memberships sort of thing.
Oh, well that could be an interesting job.
Yeah, and it's easy to get days off, so I can still do gigs when I get them.
Speaking of driving, your bio says that you have a monorail and trolley license.
So in Seattle for about two or 3 years, I drove. There is a 1960s monorail downtown, like an elevated cement beam, like the ones at Disneyland.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, except it's like the second oldest one in the world still running. So it actually has like a human manual driver in it. The Disneyland ones are automated. And so I used to drive that, like driving a roller coaster, it felt like. And then I moved to LA, and they have a double-decker trolley at the Grove that I used to work at, sort of a fancy mall. But they have a full-size double-decker trolley there that it was pretty easy getting a job there after saying I drove a monorail.
So okay, I didn't even know you could get a license for something like this. So you have to have a specific license just to drive that, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like a general license like I can drive all trains. It's sort of like you train, and then Department of Transportation comes down and you take a test, like a driver's test, and then you get certified and get a little license basically to drive that vehicle.
So what about the cable cars in San Francisco? Are you licensed to drive those?
No, I'm stuck with the Seattle monorail and the Grove trolley. But I've always wanted to drive the cable cars in San Francisco. That looks so fun to me. I'm really into trains.
Yeah, I like trains too. I wish that this country would do better with our trains. Because have you been to Europe or Japan or any place where they just have the most amazing trains?
I have in London. I've been to London for a bit and just took trains everywhere.
Oh yeah, and our trains just pale compared to the rest of the world. And I think we're just too in love with our cars. I think that's the problem in America.
It's true, and I'm sure but like, I mean, every major city used to have great transportation system, trolleys and such, and then the car companies went and bought them all up and scrapped them, so everyone had to buy cars. I mean, that's basically what happened from what I've read.
Well, LA did. LA had the most wonderful trolley system in the 1920s through the late 1950s.
Right.
What were they called? The red cars, I think.
Yeah.
And they went everywhere, all the way to Santa Monica, all the way out to like Pasadena, and it was all connected. And then by the 1950s, people were like, get these things out of the street, because they were blocking, people in their,
That's true.
in their 59 Cadillacs. And that was it. And they disappeared. And now there's like this resurgence in LA to try to bring them back because of overcrowding and,
Are you in New York?
No, I'm in Las Vegas.
Oh, Vegas. Okay.
But the reason that we quote all the booking times in Eastern time is because my producer is in Boston. We work remotely. So as not to confuse him, we book everything in Eastern time, and then I just set my Google Calendar to Pacific time, and that keeps him sane. So.
Yeah. I was just going to say New York was one of the lucky ones that kept all their trains around. And
oh, well, true. Yeah, although they kind of had to. They're sort of limited with space. Yeah, I was living in New York in the early 80s, right at the time that they were just at the worst level of decay and graffiti. And it was pretty nasty to go down into the subway. Oh, they were cheap. They were only about 60 cents at that time. And then somewhere in the 90s, they cleaned them all up. And I think they're better now, but they're also about $4 or something for a ride. I forget what the price is now, but New York isn't. They did keep their trains, and actually the Excella I've been on. Have you been on that one?
No, what is that?
That's the only really good train in America, I think. It's high speed. It runs from Boston to Washington.
Oh, okay.
And when I say high speed, I think it tops out at 110, 120 miles an hour, something like that.
Right.
Not exactly the Shinkansen that they have in Japan.
Right.
But,
Maglev trains.
or the maglevs. Yeah, some of those go
yeah.
like 700 miles an hour or something.
Right.
It's amazing. Well, we certainly just got off on a tangent on trains. Let's bring this back.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about acting. You had mentioned earlier in this conversation that there was stuff out there available that you didn't really want to do. What kind of stuff are you not interested in doing? And then tell me what sort of things you are interested in doing.
Right. So things that I'm not interested in really, which I still do sometimes just to brush up on it, is I very much prefer comedic acting and sketches and films. And those are just what I have fun doing and enjoy, and I feel like it's pretty natural and I'm good at it. And so the more like serious, somber things, and then also just the kind of humiliating commercial work and stuff that just feels so lame for an actor, you know. It's just you kind of got to break the realism and go with some hokey stuff for that. But so yeah, like that, and then there's indie films, a lot of indie films around. Some of them are amazing. I was in a TV pilot called Cold Walls that was just a great production, and it was very fun, cool story. And then there's ones I've been in where they're very new and not really sure what they're doing, and nothing against them, but like I prefer to go somewhere where they know what they're doing, kind of thing, if possible.
You don't have any. You said you prefer comedy, but what I find interesting about that is that you look, at least from your photos, you look like you would be a great character actor in historical dramas, and you know, like you have the look to be a good serious actor.
Right. Yeah, and I do. If I get the opportunity, or I would find, I've never been in I've been in like a 1920s period piece that was kind of fun, but like if I saw more projects like that, like you're explaining, I would jump on it if I could. I would like that. I also enjoy the challenge of, like in Alley's Bees, I've never played anything. You know, I was playing someone much younger than I am, and different ethnicity, and learning an accent I've never attempted before. And I enjoy the challenge and being able to say I've done it and show that I can do it for those kind of things.
So, you know, I just totally lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you something, and now see that's like a fail for a radio interviewer to lose their train of thought.
Oh, don't worry.
I was going to ask you, are you able to cry on cue?
It depends on what we're doing. I'm not the best at it, but I've definitely been in scenes that were serious, and I was, when I'm in the moment, it's like it feels real, and I can tear up and somewhat cry. Yeah.
Because I know it sounds like a silly question, but it actually was something that I studied acting in New York when I was 18 years old. I also did this little improv class on the side, and we always talked about that. We always said, okay, who can cry, you know, on cue?
Right.
It was sort of a joke, but there was actually a serious side to it, because the people that can do that quickly tend to be good serious actors, just to have that ability. It's almost like a test.
Right. It's true. I'm sure it's largely like you can just mentally get in the moment very quickly, and or just be very good at acting, I guess, you know, pretend to be sad sort of thing.
I knew one guy who actually would stick a pin in himself to get him to cry.
Oh, man.
That's
Don't do
dedication.
that.
That's
Yeah.
dedication for you. So I also saw on YouTube that you're making your own little films, and a couple of them were funny. The one but it's you went from, and I don't mean this in a insulting way or a negative way, but I kind of liked it actually, that you sort of went from the sublime to the ridiculous, depending on which film it was. Like you did this one with, I think it was a broom, and it was a horror type thing. You were sitting in a car and okay.
That was a college project actually for a film class. And we basically, people chose like an object and a theme and a line that we had to make a film with. And it was like a broom. It had to be a horror movie, and it had to say a certain thing. I can't remember what the line was, but that's how that was made.
So, I mean, I liked that one. I thought, oh, this is good. And it was well done, and it was well cut. And then on the next frame or the next film, you guys were all sitting on toilets, and one guy was sitting in a urinal.
Right.
And it was just, total defecation bathroom humor.
Right.
So I think, wow, this guy's diverse, isn't he? That was my sort of reaction, but it was funny. It was funny.
Right. That one was, I feel like I got a story for everything I made, but I was actually on the set of Cold Walls, the TV pilot for that, and we were on our lunch break in an abandoned 1930s seminary, and that was the bathroom in there, and it's like all dilapidated and destroyed, and it was missing the stall wall, so it just looked like a two-person toilet stall. And we were just like, we got to film something here on lunch break. So we like got a light and a camera and made that.
So if you had an unlimited budget and had all the equipment and stuff, what kind of film would you want to make?
So my favorite movie is It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Have you seen that?
The old one? Yeah.
Yeah. 63. Probably something similar to that, if I could. I know I wouldn't want to recreate it. It's perfect as it is, but some giant roadshow comedy that involves all the funny people I enjoy. That's probably what I'd do. Or something. I'm really into Prison Break movies.
Prison.
I find.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like The Great Escape, Cool Hand Luke, Escape from Alcatraz, stuff like that are just fun and interesting to me. Maybe something like that.
Did you see Breakout with Charles Bronson?
Yeah, I actually watched that a few days ago.
That one was, I like that one.
Yeah, it's funny.
Well, I also like that Charles Bronson was a little bit off character in that film. He wasn't the tough guy. He was just kind of a bumbling guy in that film who happened to get lucky and, sort of fall in love with with Jill Ireland, I think it was, right? Who was actually his real wife. So there probably wasn't much of a stretch. But it was just a different character than the Death Wish character. Yeah, I like that movie. I always like that one.
It's a good one. And his friend in it, I forget the actor's name.
Oh, was that Randy Quaid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's pretty funny in it too. And like, what a weird pair.
It was like Laurel and Hardy trying to break out Robert Duvall out of a Mexican prison. And it was a very bizarre setup, but it turned out to be a pretty good movie, I thought. I see Mel Brooks on your bio. Do you like the old school comedic greats like Chaplin and Laurel and Hardy and Buster Keaton and those? Yeah.
Right, and Harold Lloyd.
Harold Lloyd, yeah.
I'm very much into them. I actually do a slapstick act, a stage act. I have a couple videos of me doing it too, but I learned it from like a 30s vaudeville clip on YouTube of Wilbur Hall is his name, and but he plays a bike pump like an instrument by putting the like nozzle in his hand, and and when he pumps it, it blows air between his fingers and makes like a squeak noise. But like adjusting how tight your hand is, you can change the pitch of it, and you can play music on it basically, which I've learned to do because I thought it was so great and funny.
I think I did see that video you did of playing the bike pump. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to play it like with music just so it sounds funnier and you can tell what I'm trying to do. So yeah, I have a stage act of that, and like I came up with my own things. Like I try to tune it with a pitch pipe, and the other thing I got from Wilbur Hall is he has these shoes. In my theory, I think they're like the original clown shoes, like they're really long.
Oh yeah.
But they're like pieces of wood basically, and you're able to lean forward on them and go up into the air, and they're sturdy, so you can lean on them like a plank of wood, and they look like gravity defying. And so that with the bike pump is my slapstick act, my honor to the vaudeville guys back then.
It was an amazing time. And the one thing I love about that sort of Edwardian period, aside from the clothes, I think you and I have that affinity of the clothes of those days. Because I wish men dressed like that now. I would love to wear that kind of clothes, like go out to the supermarket, and just dress like that.
Right. Everything's so conservative now. I mean, even in color, everything's drab, and for men.
Yeah, personally for me, I was just having this conversation with a fashion magazine owner a couple of days ago on the show, and she and I were talking about men's fashions and how, like, the 1940s and 50s, to me, were the greatest fashions. If you had to pick one fashion icon from those days for men, for me, it'd have to be Cary Grant.
Oh.
He was just like the perfect image of the classy, debonair, well-dressed man. But if you go back to the early 1900s, just the clothes that they wore, with the high collars and those ascots and the diamond pin to hold the thing, and I guess they didn't call it a tie; they called it an ascot, and top hats, and I mean, beautiful. Terrible in hot weather. Awful in hot weather.
It's true. I have a lot of stuff like that, and it's really tough to wear. It was easy to wear in Seattle because of the colder weather, but it's tough to wear the stuff I enjoy here in LA. I've kind of reverted to t-shirts and things. But yeah, I have a lot of the, like you're describing, high collar, like detachable collars.
Detachable collars, yeah.
Yeah, and like celluloid. They're made of like celluloid and crazy flammable things, that'll probably poison my neck or something. But yeah, I love that style, and all the way up to like the 60s. Like my icon is Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like military coat kind of mixed with like 60s, psychedelic, but also like foreign. He'd wear like Persian vests and stuff like that just looked really cool together to me.
Yeah, those guys, him, and I'm thinking like Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones, and they like to wear fur back then.
Yeah.
They had some pretty like Afghan coats and big fuzzy things they like to wear sometimes.
Right. Well, it's also cold and rainy and stuff in London as well, or England.
True. So you're a big fan of the music of those times too, like the 50s and 60s? And
I am. 60s is probably my favorite. I really like mod stuff, but also like Elvis and Lloyd Price, and also like R&B, the old like Solomon Burke, Wilson Pickett. All those guys are badass too.
Can I ask how old you are?
I am turning 25 in May.
Oh, you're just a puppy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard to talk about this kind of stuff with people my generation. I used to hang out with this old man in a restaurant my mom used to work at, and just talk to him about the good old days that I was never a part of.
Well, I think, and this is going to be coming from an old man, but I think that music has kind of lost something in the translation to digital technology. Now, I get in trouble when I say stuff like that because I love digital technology for its abilities to edit and manipulate and work with music.
Oh, yeah, just the ease
of it.
Everything. Yeah.
Okay. Because if you've ever tried to actually edit metallic tape, it's no picnic. All right.
Have you done that?
Yeah. Back in the days, of course. Yeah. So, and film, real film stock with actually cutting it and gluing it together and is a nightmare. Okay. So digital manipulation is wonderful. The problem for me is that once the digital machine, whatever it is actually creating the noise that you're hearing versus a human being creating the noise with their singing or guitar playing or piano or whatever, the music is starting to lose its soul.
Yeah.
And once you take the soul out of the music, then it just sounds like the soundtrack to a Nintendo game to me.
Yeah.
It just has that plinky plonky sort of cold, you know what I mean? It doesn't raise the hairs on the back of your neck like a great singer or guitar player who's spilling his guts out on a stool in a smoky bar in someplace. It doesn't have that magic. It's just the magic has been digitally erased basically from the music.
It's true. I think I couldn't put it better than you just have.
So that's my complaint about the music today. And then the show bit, the one that's coming to mind. There's two of them that are a bit controversial right now. Well, let's take something into your age group here before we move on to something else. Oh, by the way, I've just decided, since I think this conversation's going really interesting, you want to do an hour show? We can just do the whole hour. You got time?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
All right. So Cardi B and who is the other guy? He just came out with some satanic video that the conservatives are going apeshit over because I guess he's gay and there's a lot of like male erotica going on with Satan and him. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
I have no idea.
I'll have to look up his name. It's like some weird name, but Cardi B did that video where she's basically humping with another girl on a pole, and it just goes on and on with the twerking and the butt shaking and
right.
But my point here is that the music between the two essentially is indistinguishable. Like you could interchange her song with his and back and forth, and it sounds exactly the same in my head. And the only thing that makes it outrageous is these sort of softcore porn videos that they did with them. So
right.
I guess I wanted your take on that, but if you don't know what I'm talking about, then
I'm sorry, I don't. I don't listen to much modern music, honestly, except from a few artists that do kind of retro style stuff.
Well, I'm actually very glad to hear that, because if you were like a big fan of those two, I would be.
No, I have no idea. I don't even know who Cardi B is, or.
Oh, good for you!
Really, yeah,
I'm
I don't
so
keep
happy
up with that.
If I was your father, I'd say, "I'm proud of you, son.
Yeah.
You stick with Jimi Hendrix."
Right.
So what else you want to talk about? What other films do you like? You mentioned Mad Mad World. That's your favorite film. What other films do you like?
I am really into. I just got a box set of Frank Capra movies that I am just in love with. Like, I've always loved It's a Wonderful Life, but I haven't seen much of his other work, and like each one is just a masterpiece to me. Especially It Happened One Night. Have you seen that with Clark Gable?
Oh, yeah, not in many years, but refresh my memory. What's that one about?
He's Clark Gable's like a news reporter, and I forget the actress's name. She's like someone's famous daughter who's running away from her father, and Clark Gable finds out who she is, and he's traveling with her, trying to help her get somewhere, but for the story of it, sort of thing. And of course, they fall in love and such. But it's just so funny. Clark Gable's playing kind of this fast-talking news reporter, kind of drunk sleaze guy that he doesn't usually play. You know, he's like Gone with the Wind, like the perfect man sort of thing, you know. But he's just kind of funny. His hair's always falling down, and it's good. And like it's got the Frank Capra touch of, he makes everything feel so grandiose, and you know, like it feels like a big 5-hour movie when it's like 2 hours long, and it's good in a good way. Like it's a big rounded story and with good morals and funny, and so that's what I've been watching. And then also I'm into like you seen any like of the Zatoichi movies or Akira Kurosawa, like samurai stuff? And
I have seen some of those, yeah.
Stuff I can't really talk about with anyone else because no one's seen them except my parents.
The one that I'm a big fan of is Orson Welles.
Oh, yeah.
And
I just watched The Lady from Shanghai.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That was a good one.
I just sort of rewatched Citizen Kane for the 18th time. And I'm always fascinated by that movie because you always catch something that you missed the last time around.
Yeah, there's a lot in that.
But you can see from how he shot his films, just on the technical side, how people are still copying what he did. Because just the angles of his camera, I mean, nobody thought before him, really, to put the camera on the floor.
Right, actually look up at the ceiling.
And look up at the ceiling, or dig a hole and bring the camera way up so that you're shooting the actors from basically below their feet. And just like when somebody would walk into a room, the camera would not be straight on to the door. He never did shots like that. The shot would come from almost behind them or above them. And then you see this later in films like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Have you seen that one with Bette Davis and Joan Crawford?
No, I haven't.
Oh, that's a sickie movie. You should watch that one. I think you'd like it.
Okay.
Psycho, and very film noir, black and white. And it was the only time that those two stood each other long enough. There was a lifelong feud between Joan Crawford and Bette Davis, which is very famous in the old golden days of Hollywood sort of stuff. But so the two of them ended up on the film. I don't know the whole story as to how they even got them in the same room together, but they managed to pull off just a phenomenal performance. I think they took all that hatred towards each other in real life and just funneled it into the characters because because the characters do hate each other, and the one is trying to kill the other one, and I won't give it away, but just the angles of this stuff, like one of them, Joan Crawford is in a wheelchair, and there's one shot where they take it from the ceiling and her wheelchair goes out of control, and you see this, and just the way that it's shot, it's like, I'm a big fan of movie, sort of the technical sides of movies.
Yeah, production,
yeah.
Yeah, that had a lot of breakthroughs, like you were saying. I read that a lot of the new angles were because it was filmed in actual like buildings and such, and not sets where like you couldn't look up because there were lights and
right.
people standing up there on catwalks, and so it was kind of, he had more freedom because it was, I think, a lower budget thing, so they had to use real places, which back then most of the stuff was like build a set in a studio rather than go to a location, unless it was like outside, of course.
Well, again, it all came down to money, because if you were under contract to a particular studio, you had access to all of their backlots and things. But if you wanted to take the whole crew to Egypt and film in front of the pyramids, that cost a lot of money. And
right.
It wasn't really much cheaper back then than it was now. In fact, I would suspect it cost more, because it was, there weren't 15 flights a day going to Egypt like there are now. And
right.
It took longer. They didn't have jets, and a lot of the stuff would have to go by boat, which could take it could take weeks and weeks to get there. And so I think it was much more of a tedious, arduous task to get stuff on site to do films back then. So I think hopefully the studio bosses would hope that they wouldn't want to do that,
Right.
I did want
I never thought about that.
Yeah, I did want to ask you if you write, because you seem like you have a very creative mind. And have you written any screenplays?
But I don't know. I've kind of got accused for them by some teachers in college for them being, the stuff I write is very kind of, I'd say, Marx Brothers kind of, it's the comedy, a lot of visual comedy and like jokes that move the plot along. So yes, I've written stuff, but stuff like that.
Tell me what you were going to say about teachers and accused of what. I'm curious. But they didn't like what you were writing, or they criticized it?
Yeah. I mean, they were, I don't blame them. They were being teachers and trying to help me out. But it was sort of like, I don't know, I guess today considered not conventional, or not interesting to them, I guess. But I've written plays actually, and put them on, and the people that came to them loved them, and I got a lot of laughs out of them. So like I feel like what I do is good, but for the class I wrote them for, they were not what they wanted to see, I guess.
Well, I certainly don't wish that would discourage you.
No, it hasn't.
Good. Okay, because I've been a lifelong musician since I was 3 years old, playing piano. And I failed music theory in college because I had a horrible teacher who thought that unless you read music perfectly, that you would never be a musician.
Oh.
And I could play piano and sing much better than he ever could. And he failed me because I just didn't take that whole idea seriously.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's lame.
It is lame, And I went on to write some good songs, and they got produced, and, that was then. But I hate that when teachers get opinionated about,
right,
especially creative artists, because art is subjective. It always is.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no right or wrong. It's only, if you're talking about a film, then the only right is that the guy who's got the money likes what you're doing. That's it.
Right.
And,
right.
It's same thing with music. And these days where everything can be DIY, where you can make your own film for very cheap because all the technology is there, you can make music. I know a guy who has a music setup in a walk-in closet. He took all his clothes out, emptied the closet, and he has his studio set up in there. Perfect.
Yeah,
room.
A lot of voice actors do that now too.
And, very minimal amount of investment for the technology. So I think whatever you want to do, you do it. And if nobody buys it, do something else or keep doing it.
Right. No, definitely. I'm for the stuff I write, I kind of like to be in charge of it and stuff anyways. So it's mostly for me. I write for me and then I try to make it. And then for actual work and other acting gigs, I'll do whatever they want, sort of thing, so I can make money and then make the things I enjoy.
Well, that's exactly right. That's exactly how you have to do it in this business. You do stuff for yourself, and then you do stuff for others, or you work a different job. Like you said, you were doing driving. You sort of have to until you get to the point where you don't need to be driving Buicks.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's a balance, because if you go too much to the sellout side, you're going to feel like you sold your soul, and you're not going to feel good about yourself, because you're going to put on your film or your whatever it is and you go, oh God, that's so awful. But right. I had to do that because I had to pay the rent. On the other hand, there are artists that are so proud of their work that no one ever sees it.
Right.
Because they refuse to put it out there for either fear of rejection or whatever. But that's no good either. You know, writing something and then putting it in a drawer.
Right.
They say, boy, I'm proud of that. Okay. But, you know, nobody ever sees it or reads it. Then that's not good either. So there is a balance, and finding the balance sometimes takes people their entire life to figure out. I swear it took me until I was 43 years old before I figured this out. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if you figured it out at 25, you're a better man than I am for figuring that out earlier in your life.
Right. And there's all the horror stories of, like, you know, like we were talking about Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, like, just being at the top of their game and making stuff everyone loved, and then seeing the big dollar signs in the studios, you know, hey, come get some money and we'll make your movies, and they lose all creative
control.
Yeah. And that's when the movies get bad and they get, like, depressed, and everything they built up was kind of destroyed because they saw the money and not the danger in it. And
the biggest problem I saw for Chaplin was what he talked about in the 1920s, that he said the tramp can't talk. Once the tramp talks, he's dead. And that held true for all of his films, because quite honestly, anything he did in sound, maybe except for The Great Dictator, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But like some of the stuff he did in the 50s, it just, when he started speaking, I kind of went, oh, nah.
Yeah. It's true. But also, like, they had to, because no one would go watch a silent movie anymore.
Well, true, right. But he was so specific to silent. In silent, he was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But as a person, Charlie had this kind of little squeaky voice like this when he talked, and he just was not a speaking actor. He would never be a speaking actor. And again, you know, this is just an opinion, but I think perhaps he should have switched to just being a director once sound came. and use different actors than trying to do it himself, because it just didn't work, you know, for these guys. And I don't know about Buster Keaton. I know I saw a thing towards the end of his life where he was having some serious financial difficulties. Like, he lost all his money at the end. I don't know. Do you know anything about that story?
Not. I used to. I used to know a lot more about him, but I know that Charlie Chaplin went to him and was like, don't go with the studios. He warned him about it, and he still did. And he made like his first MGM movie was The Cameraman, and he still had creative control over that, and it's a great movie. But everything after that, he was just the actor, and you know, the studio wrote the jokes and provided the director and everything. And that's like when he really started going downhill. And then also, of course, like talkies came out, and same with Chaplin. He couldn't do the silent slapstick thing anymore because no one would watch it. But then also, like, the same kind of things happen with, like, I'm sure you know, like Elvis and like his what was his manager, the Colonel
Tom Parker,
right, who just like threw him in all the horrible schlocky movies he got stuck in, and
yeah,
he was on his own making great rock and roll, and then he got sucked into this horrible whirlpool of crap because someone was telling him what to do, and his dream was gone, sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm glad the Beatles didn't get sucked into anything too serious like that.
Definitely.
In their early career, they had to do some stuff, but once they made it, they basically said F you to the whole system, and they just did what they wanted. And they stopped touring, and they just locked themselves in the studio and made creations of albums, Mm-hmm. And that was it. And I'm glad. And then they broke up.
Yeah.
So they did it right. They did it perfectly right, I think, for their story. StaggerLee, we got to wrap this up. We have just we've blown through an hour, and it just feels like it was like 5 minutes. But
right, I enjoy talking to you.
I've enjoyed talking to you too, and I'd like to invite you back onto the show in a few months, and we can catch up with you. Do you have any, quickly before we go, do you have any projects that you're working on, or anything that we can look forward to seeing?
We're still doing Allie's Bees live shows that's actually for schools. So that's the one thing I'm working on right now besides my own projects. But hopefully, like, COVID's it's already lifting.
It's going away.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be done with that soon enough. Thank God.
So I know. Hopefully, I'll be back in action within a month or two.
Okay. Do you have a website you want to give out, like a personal website?
I don't have a website yet, unfortunately. I always direct people to my YouTube channel if they want to see projects that I have made, which is, you can either search my name, StaggerLee Cole, on YouTube, or Island of Misfit Films is what I call my film company.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun. And I do want to have you back in a few months. If you get something, that you want to promote, give us an email, and we'll be happy to have you on to promote it.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Well, take care.
Yeah, you too. Have a good